Good morning. Today is the 12th of February 2024 and I'm going to go through my trading plan for today. Before we start, like we always do, check the news, see if there's anything that could move the market. In 20 minutes time we've got Fed Bowman speaking, so a bit of a strange time just for the market open, so keep an eye on that. And we've got a Fed speaking a bit later at 1 o'clock as well, but nothing else which should really move anything. Maybe keep an eye on the 3 and 6 month bill auctions. Okay, so let's start on the MES. This is the chart for the MES or the ES, the S&P 500 index futures, and we're looking at the 1 hour time frame. We haven't really done much today since the close on Friday. We've just grinded, well, we've just been going sideways doing nothing, and the only place I can really see, I'll just zoom out, look at the hourly trend. We've got this trend line we can watch for it to come back down, probably watching that area for a bounce around 5,020. That also happens to be the top of that pivot from last Wednesday, so that's one of the areas I'll be watching for a bounce today. Let me just add another trend line. Yes, miles from that one, so we'll see how far we are from that. Okay, so that's really the trend line we're watching. Doesn't know if it makes any difference if we do this. Makes it a little bit closer, but not ideal. I think I'll stick to that. That's the more local trend line. Basically, I'll just connect up that point to that point there. You can probably bring that in a little bit. So let's just take a look at the levels again. So what I'm looking for is a pullback for a trend entry today, and I'm watching Friday's low area and the top of that pivot there. So this entire area is an area to watch, and let's get a better. So the area I'm watching is this area here for a bounce. You can see just below we've got quite a lot of concentrated volume, and this can act as natural support as well. So my stop area will be, I'll be looking for a, can't be any lower than here. We could watch, if we want to keep the stop wide, we can use that pivot from Friday, and the low of that candle is 5,016 and 50, and I'll be looking for entry around the 550.20 area. Rejection wise, can't really see any decent rejections. We put in a high, an all-time high there on Friday. Pre-market high. Quite a narrow range, and we've got all-time highs just above as well, so I don't really want to play the break and retest of the pre-market high. I really only want to play the pullback, so I'll be looking for a long to continue the trend up, and yeah, I can't see anything better than 50.20, that area. This is the area to watch for Friday's low and that pivot low. We've got the upward trailing 50 moving average, this red line, and we've got the trend line coming in as well. So all this area, and we've got the high area of volume. So this is why I kind of like that area. That's it really. If we do see a bit of a sell off, then we can watch for a bounce off the trend line. Potentially around 5,010 to 5,000 for a bounce, psychological number. That's the only other area I consider for a bounce. Before I go further, let's just look at the SPX as well, because they're kind of correlated with each other. If we get a pullback down to 5,000, and it's before we get to any of the levels on MES, and I might look for find a trend entry short, so it might be a little bit before we get down into the area we're really watching. So 50.20 is a bounce area, unless SPX comes into 5,000 first, then I'll be looking to find a trend entry. I've got an alert already set up here, this white line's my alert, so if that triggers, then that will keep me watching for any potential reversal on a pullback. So let's look at SPY next. Before we go on, I just want to go and look at the daily as well, because last week we saw a decline in volume as the price was rising. We're still seeing that. If you see that decline in volume, rise in price, that's obviously a bit of a flag or something to be wary of, because if you want to see price rising, you normally want to see rise in volume as well. But it looks like the sellers or the buyers are not quite committed to pushing it up as much as you want, even though we've seen all-time highs. It's just a rise in, it's just a lower in volume is a little bit concerning. So maybe we can expect to see a bit of a turnaround at some point. We are quite far away from the moving averages. That's the 20, that's the 50, and this is a 200. And like a magnet, it normally draws itself back to the 50 and the 200 eventually. And that's it really. So I'm only watching for a trend entry until that uptrend is broken. So we've got 2 levels on the daily as well. Right, SPY. Got the same trend line drawn in on the SPY. And we've got Friday's low. We've got a rise in 200. And there's not much volume in that area. But if it comes back down into this area, potentially, if it goes sideways, come back down that area with a trend line as well, then we could be looking for a bounce. And also we've got the high from Wednesday as well, that pivot, where we consolidated, a bit like the ES. We consolidated for a couple of days, we broke out, came back, retested it, and then got put in a new all-time high. So we've retested that area there, so we kind of potentially want to retest it a second time. So to confirm, I'm watching 498.70 area for a bounce on SPY. And I don't really have any rejects in mind. Potentially we can watch for a reject, a high risk double top. You can see we haven't quite put in a new high as well, so maybe this could be the start of a reversal pattern, a lower high. Same, I noticed that the same thing on MES as well. The 1 hour MES chart. We haven't put in a new high, we're putting in a lower high, so maybe this is signaling a bit of a turnaround. Again, I'm not going to play the pre-market today because it's in such a narrow range. So all I'm waiting for is to pull back into this region. Unless, like I said, SPX comes back into 5,000 earlier, then I'll be looking for a trend entry a bit earlier. So let's look at Qs next. Qs has got a nicer trend line, and so I'm really waiting for it to come back into that area. We've got a rise in 50 moving average, this red line. So if we can come back into 435 to 434, we can watch for a potential bounce there. We've also got this major area for a bounce where we were the ceiling, came back down, we tested it as a floor there. We didn't quite test it properly there, so we could potentially come back into 430 to 431 area for a bounce. NQ should be similar in this uptrend. We can watch yesterday or Friday's low for a bounce. We've got, and that's at 17,920. But the better bounce area will be probably this region here, and that'll be 17,800 through to 17,880 for a bounce. Again, I'm not really considering a rejection, but I do quite like the bounce down at 17,800. That's only because it's coming off of the pivot, major pivot point, and we couldn't break above it for some time. You can see the volume as well in this area. This is the point of control. Looks pretty solid area. Okay, so oil next. Came into our area of supply. This should be a red, not green. Poked through, kind of came into that area where the shoulder, right hand shoulder break and retested this head and shoulders pattern is, and rejected. That was on Thursday. And then Friday didn't do a great deal, it dropped a little bit. So what can we see from this? We could potentially wait for a, so we're obviously looking at an hourly uptrend. Higher high, higher low. Ooh. Higher high, higher low, higher high, low, higher high, higher low. Big higher high, higher low, higher high. And we can potentially see a head and shoulders pattern forming. And we're right at the neckline right now. So if we stay below the 50 on the hourly, we can look for the break. We potentially have broken it and retest. I'd like to see a little bit of a air gap, so I want to see candles come down and come back up to retest it properly. Then we can look for a short, possibly coming off of 76 area, and a bounce. Quite a lot of volume below. It's quite, so potential bounce can be in the same area we've already got marked up at 74. And I think that's it really for oil. And we really want to see it break out on the daily. So you can see higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We're kind of in that area between either we're going to put in a new higher high, or we're just going to put in this kind of neckline break and retest short. So keep an eye on what the next few days brings. If we do get above 78, then we can look for basically a break and retest down to retest that pivot long. But apart from that, we're kind of right in between. We're right on the sideways, 200 moving average, lots of volume below as well. So it looks likely it wants to break up, and obviously I quite like this trend line as well. In fact, what we can do, let's just put the trend line in. Let's just clear that. Here we go, look at that. So it came perfectly down onto that trend line, so let's clone it. And usually you can see some sort of pattern when you clone it. Come back here, kind of a touch, break through, retest, retest, and we're kind of at that point there. So keep an eye on this. We can keep this trend line in this channel in place to see where we could be leading next. We're in the upper half of this channel right now. Let's draw the line in, so kind of up in this upper half at the moment. Generally, if we stay in the upper half, then we're looking for a breakout. If we're in the bottom half, we could be looking for a breakdown. That's kind of why I keep an eye on that. Gold. We're right at a bounce place here, daily bounce. So keep an eye on the daily for volume. Look at this, we've got declining volume right now. Declining volume, declining price. So potentially that means we're waiting to see a bit of a volume spike and a bounce. We've got a major level there as well on the daily. So as soon as you see volume pick up, we can look for a bit of a bounce off of that area. So we're watching 2032 to 2040 for a bounce, and if it breaks down below this area, the next bounce area is this pivot from December, and that's at 2014. But going back to the hourly, you could watch for its double bottom, 2030.40. We can probably tweak that a bit. So you can see more touches of candlesticks. So 2031.60 for a bounce, and it's kind of where we bounced from earlier. But high risk because it's in a hourly downtrend at the moment. It hasn't quite, needs to break this pivot to confirm the downtrend. So that's why I kind of expect see a bit of a bounce. We've got this inverse, not very great head and shoulders pattern. Came back up, broke down. But obviously we're looking at this pattern here, putting in a lower low, lower high, a lower low right now. So this is the area, but there's not much volume here. So it could keep running down. Let's just zoom out and see how much volume we get in that area. And there's a bit of volume there if you go back to December. I think if we break down that area, the next major area is 2014 to watch for a bounce. So for me, there's not really much at the moment unless you want to do a high risk bounce right now. But it's pre-market and we've got news in 4 minutes. Fed speaking in 4 minutes. So the Russell 2000 index, this is the hourly again. So we've broken out off the all-time highs. We can look for a retest. Exactly where we are right now, which is this area here for a bounce. A better bounce would be 2001, a higher risk bounce, but with the trend will be at Friday's high area, and we're looking at around 2020 for 2021 for a bounce. Let's just put my line in, and we could also watch 2010. So we've got the top of Friday's high and we've got the bottom of that pivot as well. Well, not Friday's high, I meant that pivot there where we had a big rejection, broke through, came back, retested that same area. So that area might be in play, but notice a lack of volume, so it's a high risk bounce area. The best area for a bounce will be Friday's low, this area here, and it happens to be the highs of Thursday, that pivot. And obviously the pivot's coming back from the 1st of February as well. And then last, we've got the Dow Jones Industrial, which is the YM, or you're playing the mini micros, it's the MYM. Seeing a bit of a, not quite a confirmed of us, bit of a trend line there. Not a big fan of the chart. So this has got a better pre-market high. So if we break the pre-market high, come back and retest it at 38,750, you can look for a long. First target, yesterday's high. Second target could be that area there, which is the pre-market on Friday. Volume wise, we've got big area of volume below, around 38,650. Obviously we've got the coming off of this 200 moving average where we've honoured it every time so far. So if we get back down to the 200, we can watch for a potential bounce, but we've already bounced off it once, twice, 3 times, and you know, knocked on the door 3 times in a row. Will it knock on the door 4 times in a row? But still in an uptrend, so we want to stick with the trend as much as we can. We've got SPX we just talked about. I'm watching for a bounce at 5,000, this region here. And if we go down now, I don't play SPX, but I will look to buy SPY or futures, MES or ES. And then we've got Bitcoin, which was really strong at the weekend. We're looking at the daily. So it didn't quite break the pivot from the beginning of the year, but we're right back up the 48,000 area as well. And potential bounce area, we can watch this area for a double top for rejection, and a bounce area we could watch this area here. Quite a lot of volume in this area. And we've got this consolidation area, we broke out, came back flat down, retested that area, and then we consolidated. So we haven't retested it yet, so we could break out. We have broken out, I meant we could then come back to that breakout area for a bounce at 4,400. Okay, that's it really. Let's go back to the ES. The 20 moving average has been strong for the last few days on the hourly. Last time we broke below it was when we went sideways for a few days back in the 5th and 6th of February, and then we kind of trailed it. We've been trailing the 20 moving average, and we just touched it again a few minutes ago. And then before we go, I'd like to look at the 4 hour as well. The 4 hour is now quite extended. We're due a bit of a pullback, and this is another reason why I like this level as well. So we've got 5,020 for a bounce. Also happens to be right on the 20 moving average as well, and we've been honouring this 20 moving average for some time. Ignore this bit, but we've been honouring it down here. If I zoom out, or we can go back to the 18th of January when we broke, or we can go back to 16th of Jan when we broke down below the 200 and then the 50, and then got back above the 50 and the 20. So this area here, and that is January the 18th, and we've not been below apart from this one day here. Right. Any movement in the market at 20? Just a few seconds ago? Not really. We've got a speaker now, so be wary. Trade safe. Got a bit of a blocked up head today, so hopefully I'll feel okay to trade. But I'm only watching levels, so I'm going to be patient, and I'm not going to get into a trade unless it's an A+ setup, or it's part of my plan I've discussed today, SPX 5000 bounce, and I'll be looking for a bounce on the ES.